From the moment my mother-in-law's hand sliced through the air, I knew the slap wasn't meant for my face. It crashed into my stomach with a force that felt planned, targeted, meant to wound more than my body. The sound wasn't loud, but the meaning behind it echoed through the room, filling every corner with a coldness that wrapped around my ribs. I didn't cry out. I didn't stumble. I didn't even lift a hand to defend myself. Instead, I reached calmly into my bag, fingers steady in a way that surprised even me, and pulled out the envelope I had been carrying for days. When I placed it into her shaking hand, the anger in her eyes flickered, then drained completely as she opened it. Her skin turned pale, almost gray, and before she could form a single word, her legs buckled and she dropped to the floor. But that moment, dramatic as it looked, was only the opening scene of something much bigger. I could still see clearly the day I first met her son, Arham, my husband, standing tall and gentle, as if he were someone born to shield others rather than hurt them. He listened so carefully back then, spoke softly, acted like the kind of man who would choose understanding over cruelty. His mother had wrapped me in a hug so warm it felt real. I had no idea she was secretly assessing me, deciding where the first crack could be made. Back then, I believed in the picture they painted: family dinners with soft laughter, shared secrets whispered in the quiet, promises that felt like they had weight. But illusions always shine brightest right before they fracture, and mine began to splinter after a single small comment. Arm's late nights started stretching longer. His phone calls were wiped clean from his call log. His mother's voice, once sugary, grew chilled in a way she thought she hid well. She dropped comments disguised as harmless advice, telling me I ate too much for someone pregnant, suggesting men didn't like independent wives, hinting I needed to shrink myself to fit their mold. I brushed it off until the day I couldn't anymore. The truth didn't come in a dramatic confession. It arrived in a message on his phone, written by the woman he had been spending his overtime with. "She'll lose the baby soon. Then we can start our life." She meant me. Lose the baby meant exactly what it looked like. And it hit me then that the world I thought was safe had never been safe at all. But instead of collapsing, I grew sharper, more focused. Grief screams loudly, but revenge whispers, and I learned to move in silence, calm, steady, calculated, like someone preparing for a delicate operation. I collected every message, every call record, every slip of evidence. I moved money quietly into accounts he didn't know existed. I met with a lawyer. Every bruise his mother thought I hid I documented with dates, angles, and witnesses. And when the last puzzle piece fell into place, I finally understood the full truth. My mother-in-law wasn't just involved. She was running the entire scheme. She wanted a different daughter-in-law, someone she could control, someone tied to a family she had been coordinating with behind closed doors. I wasn't losing Arham. He had already been replaced. And the life growing inside me, the baby she saw as an obstacle, became the very thing I would protect with every breath I had. The confrontation wasn't planned, but it erupted like a storm anyway. She cornered me in the living room, her voice dripping poison, telling me I'd never belong to their family, that my child would suffer for my stress, that maybe God was punishing me. My fingers froze at her words, and before I could step back, she struck my stomach again. Something inside me went ice cold. A thread snapped, and instead of crying or shrinking, I straightened my spine, lifted my chin, and handed her the envelope that would destroy everything she thought she controlled. Inside that envelope were three things, three carefully chosen pieces of truth she never imagined I had. First, a copy of the police report I filed documenting her insults and her physical attacks, listing every bruise she believes I was too ashamed to speak about. Second, the audio recordings of her whispering with Arham's mistress, discussing outcomes they thought they could force onto me. And third, a legal notice prepared by my lawyer stating that unless she and her son willingly transferred full property rights and signed custody acknowledgments in my favor, both of them would face criminal charges. She didn't even make it to the last page before her knees gave out. She collapsed, unconscious, her breath shallow, the papers fluttering around her like snow. Arham burst into the room seconds later, panic written all over his face. He dropped beside her, shaking her shoulder, shouting her name. But she didn't respond. Then he looked up at me, really looked like seeing me clearly for the first time. There was fear in his eyes, and confusion, and something like regret. He grabbed the documents with trembling fingers, flipping through them as if hoping they were fake. "You found out?" he asked, his voice cracking. I stepped closer, meeting his gaze without flinching. The man who thought I would always forgive, always stay quiet, was finally seeing what silence becomes when it hardens. "I didn't just find out," I whispered. "I followed the trail you both left, and it led straight here." I watched his breath falter as he continued reading. Fear twisted across his face as he reached the final page, the signature page, for the property transfer. His voice broke. Who signed this?" he stammered. I tilted my head, steady and calm. You did, I told him. 2 nights ago. You were too drunk to remember. His body jerked like he'd been struck. That was the moment he understood the truth. The woman he had tried to break had rebuilt herself into someone he couldn't manipulate anymore. I didn't need to raise my voice. My silence did the work for me. The ambulance came and took his mother away. Arham sank onto the sofa, staring blankly at the walls as if they were whispering secrets he didn't want to hear. And I walked out of that house with my shoulders back, my steps unhurried, the documents secured in my bag, and a child inside me that I would never allow them to threaten again. People often think revenge is about the explosion, the big, dramatic moment. But real revenge is quieter, sharper. It's the second the betrayer realizes they're the one who placed the match in your hand. As I stepped outside, sunlight warming my skin, a feeling washed over me, a deep, steady relief I hadn't felt in months. Not because I won, but because I finally understood something simple and powerful. They never destroyed me. They unknowingly helped create a version of me they could never again control. If this story made you feel something, drop a like. Comment I choose myself if you believe in self-worth over validation. Hit subscribe for more stories that remind you how powerful you really are.